that come from? It came from translation stuff. Next. Okay.
I use only English in the class.
Okay.
Maybe because different for different reason.
Mm.
Once I use Japanese, they find out like that I'm very good at speaking Japanese because I know how I look. And if you have any experience like if you use Japanese, they are become like too dependent on Japanese.
I'll just tell them no. I mean, my students know I speak Japanese, but if they ask me a question, I full up say, ask in English first. And as I've said, it doesn't matter. Linguistically and educationally, it does not matter how much English you use in class. It really doesn't. The amount of English they hear in class is so small compared to what they need. They're not going to learn. If it was just a matter of listening to language, then all of the native speakers that I know would be fluent because we hear Japanese every day. And that's certainly not the case. What does matter is how much English they use in class. And you got to force them. And I just, no. Go to the bathroom, can I please pee? It's like, well, ask me in English. Or sit there and pee your pants. And they'll do it. Because a lot of times with Japanese students, they don't want to show off in class. And that's what they're doing effectively when they show off English. But when they're made to speak English by the teacher, they're like, ah, sure, then they go and they speak in English. And everyone laughs at them, whatever. But deep down, I think they want to do it. But you just force them. You say, no, sorry. Okay? We're getting close to it, being last minute.
You had said just previously, I should ask you this later. I'll ask later.
Okay. Anything else? Because I know it's at that closing time. I think everyone's kind of itching to get going. Yes.
Actually, just one thing. I teach at the same school that Hitoshi does, and one of my students is in your class, and she mentioned you saying, when I hear Iguchi-sensei speaking in Japanese, it sounds really strange. But after, since April, because she's a first-year student, since April, she's gotten used to, hearing English from you, and so now she's fine with it. That's okay. So, yeah.
My presence put them in an English mode.
That's
I'm
right,
quite happy with that.
I think that, again, for the Japanese teachers, you're a Japanese national? Okay, I think when Japanese particularly speak English in class, I think it's wonderful. I think it's really encouraging for students. But I speak English in class all the time. If you don't, they'll fall asleep if you're speaking Japanese because they don't have to think. And switching back and forth sometimes is good because it kind of wakes them up a little bit. But I use a lot of English in class because if I'm using Japanese materials, I feel that I don't need to explain everything in Japanese. And I mean, that's what they're there for, right? So, yes?
I have a question about Japanese teachers.
Yes.
My supervisor was telling me that Japanese teachers should use Japanese only and teach grammar explicitly, but native speakers should teach English in English. So they think we should teach in a separate, totally different way.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's very good, just like you said.
Yeah.
So I was wondering how I should talk back to my supervisor.
Don't get yourself fired. I don't know what to suggest. You could tell your supervisor, he or she, that the research on this subject it's so pronounced that the dominant language, as much as possible, you should make an English environment, even if you're not a native speaker. If you're Japanese who speaks English, particularly if you're not a native speaker, you should be using English as much as you can. When you're teaching grammar, if it's already in the book, you don't need to teach it again in English. Neither does a native teacher in your class with you. If you've already taught the present perfect, you could just as easily get them to come up with their own examples. In Japanese text, it tends to be very repetitive. A lot of structural, like this Italian thing I just did, a lot of that kind of stuff. You can save so much time and teach them so much more effectively just saying, okay, now in a group, I don't just want you to come up with a sample sentence. Because if you say that, students will just make a grammatically correct sentence that has no meaning whatsoever. I need to know the context you're going to use it. I want you to give me the full situation and what you're trying to say, and give me your sample sentence, or your sample mini conversation, whatever you want. Do that. You can do that. You get them, you're talking to them in English and going, oh, that was great, yeah, okay, well then you can answer them back in English. You can do that just as effectively as a native speaker can. Your boss is wrong. But again, just be careful how you say that. Okay? I'll be getting his resume and email. You got me fired. You got to give me a new job.
There's also the idea of role models. I think it's so powerful for students to
Absolutely.
see Japanese teachers or just people in general, Japanese, who can communicate in English.
I've heard that
And I
from
think that's
students.
really, really
And vice
powerful.
versa, when foreign language teachers are actually trying to explain something in Japanese,
Yeah.
it's a role model to speak themselves.
Yeah.
That's right, for language students.
Bilinguals, I mean, if you listen to bilinguals talk, I was at a party and there was an Italian, a Japanese, and me, and all three of us spoke everyone else's language. So the language was constantly flipping. Whatever we felt was most appropriate for the time. So I'd say something in English, and then I might say something in Italian because it just fits better, and then but everyone understands. That's the way that people typically talk, right? And so if you're an English speaker and using some Japanese in class, that's actually a natural
Yeah.
approach. As long as, again, just think support as opposed to crush.
There's just something wrong about thinking that a certain language is illegal in a certain context.
Yeah.
It's not right. Like,
Yeah.
it's ridiculous, really.
But if the students make the rules, again, this gets back to that little quote I have from Auerbach, if students are making the rules and they support it, it's great, as long as they're making the rules. But if you're, forcing them to do something, you got to figure your class out. I mean, I think you're saying, every group's different, and you have to feel your class out. If your class seems like the one who enjoys that little bit of strong arm, what language is that using? And I do that too. It's not, what language is that? If they're doing a task and I hear them yakking in Japanese, is that English? That doesn't sound like English. And they they turn to English. They need that kind of support, I think. But pressure should come from them more than from you. I'm going to be here. Well, I think we should finish it up now because I know some people got to get going. If anyone would like to go for to wherever, locally Izakaya and get some beer or something. Not that I need any more beer after 4 days in Sapporo. I think I've been to every bar that exists here. And I have my soup curry and everything. I feel like a real Hokkaido guy. They don't have that now where I'm at. So, if you want to go for a quick bite, you can talk about this or whatever. I'd be happy to hang out with you. I'll hang out here for a little bit longer if people want to stay and ask questions. Other than that, thank you so much for having me. I've had a wonderful time. You've been a great audience. But you have been. It's been good. Some of the questions have been just really led me to exactly where I needed.